welcome to the Passenger Seat Podcast, a podcast designed to fill your passenger seat with chat about classic cars, all recorded from my 1968 Morris Minor Peggy. I'm Becca, and today I'm going to be telling you all about the Morris Minor Young Members trip to the Shuttleworth collection for their Shuttleworthin lights display. So obviously last year with the Morris Minor Owners Club Young Members, we did that fantastic trip up to Beamish, and it was always going to be a really tricky one to follow, but I wanted to make sure that it was something festive, something a bit fun, and something that we could get the cars kind of involved with as well. And I love lights displays. If there's one thing about me, it's that I love classic cars and I love Christmas lights. And so the Shuttleworthin lights display has always kind of appealed to me because it is Christmas lights on display in their gardens and stuff like that, but also around their exhibits. So you get to go around the Shuttleworth collection and have a look at the aeroplanes and the vehicles and check out what's going on there in a festive way. And so I got in contact with them and said, look, we'd like to bring a group of young owners of Morris Minors who would love to kind of decorate up their car and display it kind of outside of the main display area, but also kind of in a way that anyone else who's coming to it can enjoy it. And so they were really excited about it and said, yeah, absolutely. So put it out to the young members, and we got a really fantastic number of people booking on and getting involved, and that was really great actually. I think we ended up with over 20 attending, and a good number of cars as well, which is really good. And everyone was really excited for it. There was lots of chat in the WhatsApp group that we set up for it about the lights that people were bringing along, how much effort people were putting into it. Some people were travelling upwards of 800 miles to be there. It was a really fantastic level of enthusiasm for getting out and really enjoying our cars in the winter period. And I'm always really grateful that the young members are like that they are kind of really willing to go out of their comfort zone and have a bit of fun with the cars, not take themselves too seriously. Rolls around and the plan is get there from about 2:30, give yourself plenty of time to get your car all decorated in the daylight, and then we will go around as a group, grab some bits and bobs from the cafe or the little food stalls to have a little snack on, and enjoy the display. So we're the first ones there, but we are almost the closest. There was 2 young members, thankfully, because I always feel bad if I'm the closest to an event that I've put on, and there were 2 young members closer, so that worked out great. But we still managed to be there a little bit early, which was good, and we got ourselves parked up and started putting on our decorations. Well, I was in charge of decorations and lights and things like that. Jamie was in charge of giving Peggy a little clean. I'd cleaned her during the week and then taken her up to Lincolnshire for some work, and she got absolutely filthy. So I'd done my best to kind of clean her off a little bit during that, and she just needed a little bit of something, bit of detailer and things, bit of waterless wash to tidy her up a bit, because obviously with all the fairy lights and stuff, it was going to be hopefully quite a sparkly looking car, which is what we achieved. So Jamie was great on getting the detailer and stuff all over the car, tidying her up a bit, and I got to work on the tinsel and fairy lights and setting all of that up, and she ended up looking quite good, if I do say so myself, and She was joined by several other Morris miners, and now I'm going to have to challenge myself to see if I can remember all of the cars and owners. So we had Xenon in his Trafalgar Blue Morris Minor. We had Daniel in his Trafalgar Blue Morris Minor. We had Josh in his Rat Mog. We had Michael in his Rose Taupe. We had Ben in his Black Saloon. Lewis in his Black Saloon. It was all saloons actually. We had Matthew in his Black Saloon that had come from London, and then Matthew who'd come from Edinburgh in his Light Blue Saloon. And what else did we have? We had Harry in his Light Blue Saloon. We had Alex in her Saab, a funny looking Morris Minor, I know. James in his Land Rover Defender, and Nathaniel in his A35 van. And we also had two members of the A35, young members who came along. We extended the invite to all of them, but they had their own thing, I think, happening in January, but these guys took it up and seemed to enjoy themselves. And so Nathaniel brought his A35 van along to represent, and yeah, ended up with a pretty decent turnout. And I really hope I've remembered all of the cars. And that's the thing with these groups getting so much bigger now in terms of the number of cars that are turning up. It's fantastic, but it is really challenging my memory. And yeah, it was a really good lineup of cars, and everyone worked really hard on making the cars look fantastic. James with his Land Rover had managed to manufacture some lights out of some lights that he'd found in the loft of the house that he'd just bought, and then ended up having an issue with them and produced a soldering iron from the back of his Land Rover and started fixing the lights so that they could work. And the issue was caused by me asking him to move his Land Rover after he'd already covered it in the fairy lights. But fantastic effort. There were people who had gone out and got special lights specially. There were people who got quite creative with tinsel and all sorts. It was a really nice lineup, and I think we did a pretty good job, really. I think we were attracting quite a bit of attention from people that were going in, who were walking past us on their way in, and seeing kind of the amount of effort that we put in. Oh, and of course we had Lee on his motorcycle, who had also put some light up little antlers on his motorbike as well, and that slotted in nicely between Peggy and Xenon. And once we were all set up and had spent a bit of time admiring the cars, getting some group photos and catching up with each other a little bit as well, it was then about time for us to go and have our little walk round the lights. Now the lights online say kind of between an hour and a half and kind of 3 hours to walk round, and I guess that depends on how much time you spend looking at everything. I think we managed to do it in about an hour and a half, really, and didn't have any issues with that. And that was with some of the young members participating in some of the activities that were going on as well. So when you got there, you got given a map, and on the back there was some festive activities and word searches and stuff like that. I think were aimed at children, but were really interesting and worthwhile doing anyway. And then you kind of looped around the gardens and some of the light displays there, and had to keep your eyes peeled for illuminated animals in the gardens. And then once you'd done kind of the loop of the gardens, you went inside into the hangars. And there were areas of the hangars that I think are usually open that were closed off for the evenings where they had the lights displays on, so you don't get to see absolutely everything, and obviously you can't see everything as clearly as you might be able to see it during regular opening hours. But I think it's a really fun way of seeing the displays, and perhaps an alternative way to go and see the displays with people who might not always enjoy car museums and plane museums and stuff like that, but do enjoy Christmas and festivity. A real highlight for a good few of the young members was the fact that they had an anti-aircraft gun that you could sit on and move round and higher and lower the gun to be able to try and hit the target that was moving round. So they had a volunteer that was moving a torch round, and then you had to kind of manoeuvre the anti-aircraft gun around with the kind of hand pedals and stuff like that, and very tricky and really kind of a skill of coordination, but we had some young members give it a go and do a really good job of it. Not quite as good, I feel, as the kind of 5 or 6 year old that went before, but they had a good go of it, and I think with a bit of training they might well be ready to take out some aircraft if needed. But it was a lot of fun, and it was a great kind of inclusion into the evening, and I think a few more things like that would have been really fantastic. The lighting in and around the aeroplanes was pretty, but I'm not sure it was like exactly what I imagined. I think I was looking for kind of what we'd done with the cars in terms of much more Christmassy twinkly lights and stuff, but it was essentially different coloured spotlights and stuff on the planes and cars, which did make it look interesting and a little bit festive in there, but I secretly think our cars looked really good, and I think there's more that could be done with some serious use of fairy lights, not to be underestimated, I think. The car section was really good, and there was some really unusual vehicles in there. A Errol Johnson dog cart, which was great to see, a Singer motorcycle, and a motor wheel actually, and some other kind of veteran cars as well that also take part in the London to Brighton runs. And yeah, a nice little collection, and the little setup that they'd got of the mechanics area was really nice to see. I love when those sorts of things are included in motoring museums. And yeah, it was a nice little area to walk around, and all the young members were pointing little bits and pieces out to each other. There was a great display of 3 Shell posters that made me laugh. So there was 2 posters that said, these men use Shell, you can be sure of Shell. And then there was one poster that said, these people use Shell, brunettes and blondes, you can be sure of Shell. And there was 2 women featured on it, and it did make me laugh, but you know, hopefully things have moved on a little bit since then, but it was quite funny to see them all kind of side by side, and I do worry about the redheads and the fact that they can't use Shell oils. But once we'd kind of looped round and seen everything, we headed back out, carried on having a chat by the cars, got the opportunity to talk to a few people, and grabbed some churros to have a little snack on whilst we were stood out there, and also warm ourselves up a little bit before it got to kind of about 8 o'clock-ish. So we'd had a good few hours there, and whilst we'd been setting up, we'd seen some aeroplanes flying and doing some fantastic displays, really, for no reason as far as we could see. But yeah, we'd had a fair few hours there. It got to about 7:30, 8 o'clock, and we started to delight and tinsel all of the cars, ready for them to go on their way, and we had a very quick goodbye to everyone, saw everybody off, and then it was time for us to head home ourselves. Overall, we had a pretty fun and festive time. It was great to be able to see everyone again, because we haven't really had such a big group of young members together since, we had the trip to minor services in October, but this was a really big group actually, and that was kind of comparable with how many sort of people we get at national weekends, which was quite nice. And seeing the Shuttleworth collection, my first visit to the actual collection in the lights, was quite fun. I probably ought to go back and actually see it properly at some point, and really take in all of the signs and stuff like that. But yeah, it was fun, it was festive, and a nice way to round out a year of motoring with the young members. And of course, I think that is actually my last young members meet that I will organise. Next year we've got a trip hopefully to Northern Ireland, but Dara's been organising that, and then I effectively hand over the young members in April of next year. So it's going to be an interesting change for sure, but it's been a lot of fun to put on all of these things for the young members, and really rewarding when they've enjoyed themselves, and we've got to do all sorts of fantastic experiences that we might not have otherwise got to do if we didn't have a group of other young people to enjoy them with. And so really grateful to all of the young members who have carried on turning up to stuff and enjoying themselves with their cars, supporting each other in the WhatsApp group and stuff like that. And I hope they enjoyed the Christmas trip as much as I did, and I look forward to seeing what the next couple of years brings with Nathaniel and Dara at the helm. But that's it for this podcast. If I believe when this comes out, there might still be a few dates for Shuttleworthin Lights if you are interested in going, but if not, maybe keep an eye out for it next year if it sounds like something you'd be interested in. If you've been watching on the YouTube, you'll be able to get kind of an idea of what some of it looks like, hopefully from the footage that I got of the young members going around. But in the meantime, drive safely, happy motoring, and a very happy Christmas, because this is the last podcast before Christmas 2024. But I'll be back next week in the weird gap between Christmas with an official introduction to Jaffa the Reliant Scimitar, and whether he was the perfect Christmas car. Thank you very much.